Shaft removal is straightforward. First of all, obviously you take the guard off, and then the next job is to remove the two chains on the bottom. You're taking the two bottom shafts out, so remove this chain and remove that chain. You can see the joining link, quite a simple job with a pair of pliers. So you start off by removing those two. The next part to remove is this segment. We call that the shaft segment. Obviously 2 bolts to remove that. And then at that point in time, you can remove the 2 bolts retaining this bearing here on the second shaft up. So you take those 2 bolts out, you come across to the other side, and you take those 2 bolts out there. At that point in time, the second shaft is free to be withdrawn. The bottom shaft is slightly different in that there is no segment to remove the shaft through, so it is a case of removing this taper lock sprocket. To do that, you undo the 2 grub screws and then lightly tap with a copper hammer the outside of the sprocket towards the bucket, and then they are free to come off. Now, upon returning the bucket to work, when that bottom shaft is put in first, you put the sprocket on. You don't initially set the distance up until you've got the chain back on, but essentially when you're positioning that distance from the sprocket to the outside of the bucket, you want to measure it and make sure it is the same as above. You tighten the grub screws up and set it into position, and then one at a time you take a grub screw out and put Loctite on them and make sure they are tight. With regards to tensioning the chains when it goes back in, for example, if you use a bar and you're able to tension the chain with a long bar, you move the sprocket slightly to do that, and then you work your way down and adjust the sprocket also.